Hey, it's me, Tim, and I'm back messing around with acoustic guitars made from reclaimed closet doors. If you're longtime viewers, you know this is a big pet project of mine, and there's a whole playlist you could probably see right about here. I bet you there's a link about all these guitars. But you could also skip all of that and just go to the last video of the last guitars that I made. I made 2 acoustics, and one of them I hated the body on, and I wanted to make another body for it. And that's what we're going to do today. I made a new body for the neck, and I had some ideas throughout the process of doing it that I thought I'd give a try because, you know, there's a couple taboos I haven't broken yet. All right, let's do it. We'll start at the very beginning. It's been a while since I've filmed my process for tearing apart these hollow core closet doors, in case you were curious of what they look like. But I think most people, at least most people in North America, know what these things are. They're thin Luan plywood, about an 1/8 inch thick, and they're stuffed with cardboard, which you'll see in a minute. And what I do is I cut the bottom, top, and edges off because those are solid wood, usually about 1 inch thick, so you can put hinges on it and stuff. And then from there, I can tear the 2 plies apart because the whole inside is just pieces of cardboard, and the edges are glued up to give it like some body and, you know, some minimal strength. But there you can see that's all the inside looks like. And once you kind of get them started, they come off pretty easy. And then of course I want to sand. I just scrape all that cardboard off and I run it through my sander to sand out the bumps. And then another part, of course, of making the body is I have to have a neck block and an end block, tail block, I guess you would call it, you know, made of real wood for bolting the neck to and stuff. And so I've been using, these are scraps of 1.5 inch thick butcher block tables that I make guitars out of, and I always have these little pieces left over that are a good size for these types of projects. But I mean, it'd be nice to use something maybe a little bit lighter, but it's just a handy product that I have on hand. However, I want this acoustic guitar to be 3 inches thick, not 1.5 inches thick, so that means I have to cut 2 pieces and glue them together. Since it's a bolt-on neck and those bolt holes are already there, I use them for alignment and just glue these 2 pieces together. But then on the tail block, I actually, in my CNC files, created these little dowel pins to help me align those 2 pieces to get my thickness. I think someday I'll make a better body mold, but I'm still messing around with my original one, which is just this MDF platform that I have that I keep clean, and 2 1/4 inch pieces of MDF cut on my laser and then glued together to make this just a 1/2 inch thick template, which is all I'm using. There you can see I'm using my center square and the original square to just make some center marks on these pieces of wood to help me center everything inside my mold. So yeah, this mold is a little bit thin, you know, for making guitars, but I think I'd like it to be maybe twice as, or like 1.5 inches thick, like half the thickness of the guitar. But I'm still not 100% sold on this body design, so I'm still just sort of struggling through this. So you can see in earlier videos I showed a little bit more of this laser process, but what I do is I laser kerf the inside of the closet doors, and that's what gives me the ability to bend it. You'll see the traditional way of doing that when I make the kerfing a little later in the video, but the laser is like this kind of neat way. Instead of steaming it, I can bend it into shape like that, and then glue my end blocks on and stuff. And I have this sort of angled cutaway here that I put a little block of, and you'll notice at the top of the guitar where your arm goes, on the last one I did like an arm cut. I put a block of wood in there so I could sort of sand away some material. But I liked it as a player, but I don't think this design like necessarily warrants it or needs it, and it gave me some difficulty with fitting electronics in up there. Of course, on this one, you'll see later, I don't even have any electronics up there yet, at least, but you'll see why in a bit. And so then I add this little block of wood in this corner for a little structure there as well. It's tricky using this closet door and bending it like this because, and we talk about it later, the Luan really likes to flake and chip, and it's hard to make it look good. Of course, I could just steam bend wood or use some of these higher quality doors, but I'm trying to use the cheap stuff on purpose, you know. This is a cheap table saw I have set up with a very expensive blade on it just for making kerfing, and basically that's pretty much all I use it for. And I use scraps of pine and poplar to do that, just kind of whatever I have laying around. I do a quick cut on my table saw to get that shape, and then I just do this with this little jig I built, 100 little cuts, and then that gives me the ability to make my own purfling that wraps around, you know, the top of the guitar to help give me my strength. Now, you might think that that's crazy that I bought that table saw and that blade. It's about a $200 investment just to do this, but I was buying pre-made kerfing and it was costing me about $40 for enough to do like 1.5 or 2 guitars. So really, in 4 guitars, it's 5 guitars. It's paid for itself doing it myself. And I might even start making more while I'm at it and selling it. But it is kind of, every time I'm doing it, I get tired of doing it, and I don't want to stop and not make enough to sell. But someday maybe I'll set up an intern or something, and then I just glue that stuff along the top of the guitar. And then the cool thing about this mold that I have is that I can just unscrew it, flip it upside down, and use that to do the bottom side too. So one of the big design changes on this guitar is the bridge. On this one, I'm actually going to put, you'll see a little bit later, an electric guitar bridge. And that means that I also want to string it, which I've done for a while now. I want to string it through the body instead of using those little acoustic guitar pins that you push on the top. Even before I went to this electric guitar bridge, I was doing it that way. So I have to have 2 cavity accesses on the back of the guitar, one to get at the strings and one to get at the electronics. And I also don't want them to be something you need a screw for. Like if you break a string, you need to be able to do it quickly. So I create these magnetic cavity covers, which means I got to stack up, and I had to plan out a couple layers of wood that were thick enough to hold a magnet in there and have a lid. And then you can see I just glue that all onto the inside of the guitar. And then that gives me the opportunity to have very easy access, which you'll of course see at the end, to the inside of the guitar. And then this is like a plywood door, so you don't really have to do like the whole rosette around the sound hole, but just kind of for tradition, I did a little laser cut in there, and I put a piece of just some veneer wood in there just to kind of, because it's plywood, it's not really going to chip and break like a solid spruce top would or something. But I can, so I just give it that, because me, obviously I'm a traditionalist. And my friends over at Total Boat gave me some of their new super glue that they carry to try out, and I've been using that on this guitar. And like here, I'm just adding some thin in the cracks here, which are like a little bit troublesome. It works really well, so check out totalboat.com if you're looking for another option for CA glue. Now, I had this idea that because this body will tend to move and flex a little bit when it's out of this mold, the downside of my mold is I do kind of have to take it out to continue to work on it. I had this idea of putting the back bracing in first to help keep the guitar in shape, and then gluing the back on and stuff together, because the bracing's supposed to connect the sides, and I wanted to just connect the sides. So I could have just probably done the way I did the top, where I trace the inside and fit the pieces a little like kind of accurately to sort of do the same thing, but this worked pretty good for now. And I was able to just mark them up inside and give them a little shape and just build them upside down. So now I felt like this took a lot of the wiggle out of my sides, so I could go and like line it up and carefully check and make sure it was straight with my sound hole, and then go in and trace the inside with the kerfing to get the actual space inside. You can see that pencil line going around of where my top bracing needs to go. And for this, I had some thin scraps of mahogany that I use, and you can see I'm using a different wooden plate there than I've used in the past. When I was putting the acoustic guitar bridges there, I actually developed a metal plate that I could use as a ground that would hold the strings and run up. But for this, I just grabbed a piece of scrap plywood and sort of laid out my bracing. There's no rhyme or reason to this bracing. Like, it doesn't follow any traditional patterns, of course. I just built it around the spaces that I had, and I probably put more than I need. And I'm using my homemade Go deck too. If you don't really know what that is, you can kind of see there I have a piece of wood screwed to the ceiling of my shop that is a little bit shorter than those those like driveway markers, fiberglass driveway markers, and I just push them up and create down pressure. So now, I started by just gluing a couple of them on that I could shape, and then I sort of rough shaped in the other ones and glued those on, and trying to always figure out the best way to do this, because it's hard to clamp them down even with the Go deck if they're already shaped. So this way works. I want to make sure my sides and my bracing and stuff are all nice and flat before I glue my top and back on. And so this is just a piece of sandpaper on a long block of wood that I use to even everything out and check and make sure I've got a good seam before I go ahead and glue stuff on. And I did the top first on this one this time. And you can see I make the top just slightly oversized, and then I route it in after it's glued on. Just because I would have those issues with there being a little bit of play and flexibility in the sides. These silicone blocks by benchcritters.com are the best bench blocks I've ever used. So much better than the other ones on the market, because nothing sticks to them. But so I magically unclamped the top, and then I went and I did the bottom. And of course I have those braces glued into the bottom already that I need to make sure are adhering to the top. So I was able to clamp 2 of them through that sound hole, but then there's the one I couldn't quite reach, not sound hole, access hole, and that's what that weight was for. And now that I've if I brace the sides like I did, I probably don't have to make the top and back oversized anymore. It would probably line up properly, but I do it anyways and just route it in. And of course, the big problem with this Luan wood is that there's voids and there's it flakes and splinters, and so that's why I do the paint on the back and sides to try to hide some of that. So I started prepping that all up. This is the old guitar with the body I hated. I parted it out and took the parts off of it for this guitar while I was going through the process of painting this. So I didn't get it perfect, but I did manage with some super glue and some wood filler and stuff to fill in most of the flaws and the ugly spots. But if you look at it close, you can still kind of see some through the paint. I just didn't put a lot of... It's just hard because the Luan is so unforgiving. And I thought it'd be cool to tape the top off and have overspray, but it was that line was too sharp. And so then I thought, well, I'll just sort of blend it in, but I maybe sanded a little too much. I probably should have left a little more green paint. Whatever, just experimenting. And then obviously the paint, I don't have to put any finish on, but I did just use a little bit of this walrus oil on the top to fit that. And then the great thing about this design is that it is, it's a bolt-on neck. It's a universal fit, so everything that I pulled off the other guitar can just go on. And here, instead of gluing down a fixed traditional acoustic guitar bridge, I used 3 skinny bolts and bolted down this electric metal guitar bridge because I wanted to see what would happen if I liked it or not. And then I put my $2 bill pickup in the position that I designed it for and strung her up and wired her. But because of the bridge I'm using, I did not put a piezo system in. One of the big draws of this guitar design is that it has these 2 electronic systems, the magnetic and the piezo. But this one does not, because I did not have the right style of piezo bridge for an electric guitar bridge. And I couldn't put the kind on that I put under a wooden acoustic guitar bridge. But hey, check out this little wrench. This is a new thing over at squaretools.com. It's like keeping your guitar keys kind of wrench. Fits every bolt on your guitar. It's perfect for that. Okay, but enough of that. Let's take a look at the finished guitar. With only half the electronics in it, just this, and then we'll give her a listen too. All right, let's have a listen to it real quick. And I also brought from home, this is, what number is this? I don't even know. Number 3. It's a slightly different body style, but it's a similar thickness and it's a similar setup. So we'll give a listen with the, to kind of compare the traditional bridge to the metal bridge sound. And then we'll also plug this one in and check it out, what it sounds like electric. Okay, just for a little acoustic comparison, this is an older one with the more traditional acoustic guitar bridge. We're listening to it unplugged, similar closet doors. The strings are a little older on this one, but here's just what it sounds like. And here's the newer one I just built, same materials, but with a metal bridge, like an electric guitar bridge. Geez, now I want to put new strings on the other guitar just for a better comparison. Alright, I put some fresh strings on the old one so we can get a better sound. These strings are now just like a day apart. I mean, the body constructions are a little bit different, but the thing that I noticed in the room right off the bat is that this one actually sounds a little bit crispier and like a little bit like more defined than that one. But that one sounds much louder, and I'm sure the bridge has a lot to do with that. But also, like I said, there are some construction differences too. This one's a little bit more fortified than that one, which just means that there's less ringing. But let's hear this plugged in now. Okay, so now I am plugged into my little Chinese amp here. I've got all the knobs pretty much flat-lined, the gain down a little low, and I have the reverb off because I'm plugged into my pedal board up here, which has a reverb pedal on it. And so first I'm just going to play this is a clean, dry signal. Let's make it sound like a guitar now, with a little reverb on it. A little compression. Let's roll the tone down here. So, I mean, right now we're treating it sort of like an acoustic electric. Let's just treat it like an electric guitar. So we can process this sound, you know, like an electric guitar, like a pretty lively electric guitar with this sort of vintage style pickup on it, and make all sorts of cool sounds. I mean, this definitely doesn't sound like an acoustic guitar like that I would kind of almost want or expect right now. But I'm also plugged into a guitar amp. Like, I'm not plugged straight into a PA system, which is how these would usually be done. So as I've talked about in some of these older videos, there are sort of different levels of quality of the reclaimed closet door wood that I use. And the past couple guitars I've been trying to use the most inferior, the Luan, which is the easiest to get. So, you know, it's like basically an infinite source, honestly, in suburban America. And that wood likes to flake a lot, so I had all the same problems I usually have around the edges and trying to make all this stuff look good. Under the paint, it doesn't look bad, but if you look at it close, you can still tell that it's not, you know, like a really, like, you know, perfect piece of wood. We listened to it, we heard what it sounds like. I don't know if the metal bridge is necessary, and because of the metal bridge I can't put a piezo in. Of course I could get one of those electric guitar piezo bridges and put that in there, which I would do if I continue down this road. I would definitely do that because I miss having the dual electronic systems, but I'm not sure it's necessary. I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I've never had any intonation problems with the regular acoustic guitar bridge. That was just something I wanted to try. Yeah, so let me know what you think. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts of this sort of, you know, again, hybrid acoustic guitar, not trying to compete, you know, sonically, acoustically, more about plugging in. I do think it's lacking without the piezo and just the magnet, but maybe it's just like a whole new thing too, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know where to put them. Be good. So yeah, I'm gonna hang on to that for a while and force myself to play the guitar a little more than maybe I do, like, you know, around the house. Usually I pick up a bass if I'm noodling. Maybe I'll noodle on that for a while. And then as far as this one, I don't know what I'm gonna do with that yet. Anybody interested?